everyone. We are now moving forward in the lifespan. We're jumping over typical adulthood because that's what you have been focusing on in the other classes that you've taken in this program. And we're going to be jumping into working with an elderly population and geriatrics. So weeks 11 to 13 are going to cover the geriatric population. When we're looking at week 11, we're focusing on the physical and cognitive abilities and development of our geriatric population. Now I have some good news. There's only 2 chapters left that you have to read in the Lifespan Development textbook. So weeks 11 and 12 are going to focus on chapter 17. The quizzes on Revel are going to be due at the end of at the end of week 11. And then you've got chapter 18, which aligns with week 13, and so those quizzes will be due at the end of week 13. Now, I have had some feedback that some of you find the Lifespan Development textbook to be quite dry, and I apologize. It's information that is the theoretical basis for understanding normal and abnormal development throughout the lifespan. It is the textbook that was chosen specifically for this course, and so that is what we have to work with. The quizzes on Revel have been designed the way that they are because I really just want to get a sense of whether or not you are reading and processing the information from the textbook. I'm not asking you to apply that knowledge. It's really just, answering questions specifically about the readings that you've done in the textbook. And so I've also heard some feedback that some of you don't see how the readings in the textbook relate to the discussion board post. When we're looking at the posts on the discussion board, that's more of an application of knowledge. We're really focusing more on that rehab-based approach, things that you're going to be needing to do as an OTA PTA, particularly if you're working in the pediatric or geriatric population. There are handouts posted on the weekly folders where I've given a summary of some of the OTA PTA type techniques and treatments that you would expect to be familiar with. There are also discussion board questions related to video lectures or some of the videos posted. And so I'm really looking for that higher level thinking, not just a regurgitation of information, but what do you do with that? Do you understand how your role might be carried out in working with a pediatric and or geriatric population? So that's why the discussion board questions look quite different. But to be honest, if you went through the syllabus and you looked at the learning objectives every week, you would actually see that I have every single learning objective is addressed through either the material in the Lifespan Development text, the material in the handouts, the video lectures, and then the discussion board questions. So some of those things, you'll see all of those points being addressed. We have quite a variety of information to cover in this course, but we're really focusing on physical development, cognitive development, social development, and then the OTA PT role in dealing with atypical development and disability in pediatrics and geriatrics. So hopefully that makes a little more sense, and I apologize if some of you have been confused about that. The online format is not an easy one, and I also did hear that some of you really like the video lectures, so hopefully this will help. In preparing for the final exam, I'm not going to be asking a lot of questions where you're just regurgitating information. I really will be focusing more on the application of that information and what does that mean. So for those of you that have been consistently participating in the discussion board posts, you'll be quite prepared for many of the questions on the exam, because the types of answers you guys have been giving really is what I'm looking for in terms of the final exam, because I do want to get a sense of the application of that information and what does that mean from a rehab perspective. So hopefully that will help you prepare for the exam. Certainly go back and look at the discussion board questions and read your peers' comments, because there's lots of great information and great suggestions there, and I've been really pleased with the majority of the responses on those the discussion board posts. So if we look at week 11, I do want to just mention that if you're looking at the syllabus, there is a couple of points there that we don't need to worry about. So I forgot to remove them from the syllabus, but there's some things that specifically address OT and physio approaches to complex pathologies. Now you guys had an entire complex pathologies course and health conditions course, so we're really not going to focus on that in this course. You've already have that information in another course, and you've already been tested on that. So you don't need to worry about that. We're going to be focusing more on, in week 11, functional independence, and what does that mean? Now, I'm not going to tell you because I want to know your opinions on what that means, and that's certainly one of the discussion board questions that I'm going to be looking for, and I love how you guys comment on each other's posts, and I'm really pleased with what I'm seeing now. So I want you to, as we're moving into the next 3 weeks, think about, everybody's had a placement in long-term care because you all would have had a second semester placement with an occupational therapist, and many of you have had another placement in long-term care with a physiotherapist. So I really want you to think back to those placements and the types of tasks that you were asked to do, what you observed the occupational therapist doing and the physiotherapist doing in the long-term care setting, and then compare that role and those tasks and how you interacted with residents to placements that you might have had in the hospital or in a clinic, a more acute care setting. You'll notice, there's quite a significant difference. We can kind of look at, if we look at week 12, when we start talking about healthy aging, we talk about things like the remediation versus compensatory treatment techniques. And if we look at remediation or restorative treatment, the goal really is to restore physical, cognitive, or social and communication skills or functions. We're looking to try to get them back to the level that they were at prior to injury or the onset of a disease. And so remediation techniques would focus on exercises like a walking program, range of motion, strengthening. We might look at repetitive practice to restore cognitive abilities. So that might be relearning how to make coffee after someone has suffered a stroke. We might also look at some mnemonic strategies for cognitive rehab. And mnemonic strategies are tricks that can kind of stimulate memory or ways where we can learn new information. And we can have two different ways to do that. We've got verbal mnemonic strategies, so things like acronyms and rhymes and songs, or we can look at imagery mnemonic strategies. So building memory through visual images. So those are a couple of things that we would look at for remediation and restorative treatment. Most of those things is what you probably would have been focusing on in a clinic setting or in a hospital setting, restoring someone back to their original function to the best of your ability. When we're looking at compensatory strategies, those tend to be the things that we were probably doing more of as people age, and restoring their original function is no longer really a goal. We're looking at compensating for deficits that they might have. And those are probably things that you did more so in the long-term care setting. So that might be things like making changes in someone's environment. It might be adopting different methods of how someone performs an activity. For example, after a stroke, we might teach them a one-handed dressing technique so that they can compensate for the loss in using that one side of their body. We would also look at using devices. So, we've got devices to accommodate for physical needs like sock aids and reachers. Then we also have some cognitive devices. So things like using an agenda or using a tape recorder or even a watch or a timer to help stimulate or give reminders for what someone has to be able to do. So those are some remediation and compensatory strategies that we are looking at in week 12. We're also going to look at health promotion and disease prevention in week 12. And so health promotion and disease prevention really looks at things like educating a lot of our geriatric population on maintaining a healthy food choices, maintaining a healthy lifestyle. We would want to talk to them about the benefits of exercise, the benefits of maintaining leisure pursuits, getting out there and getting active to the best of their ability. And certainly we need to make modifications for, physical disabilities. So most of you in the long-term care setting would have done some group exercises and some gentle sit and stretch techniques. And for those that can stand and do that, we have them stand. And for those that are sitting or in a wheelchair, they can still participate to the best of their ability in those group exercises. Certainly, we've got bowling and we've got ring toss, and we have a whole bunch of other leisure pursuits, playing cards, puzzles, even just the social engagement with their friends and their family, or social engagement with peers, or the social engagement that you provided as OTA and PTA students to our residents in long-term care. Another one is falls prevention, and so that's a big one in terms of what we would be educating our geriatric population on. And in week 12, you will be filling out a falls prevention worksheet. There is not going to be any Rebel quizzes for week 12. Yay, insert applause here so you guys don't have to do quizzes that week. But you will fill out a brief worksheet, a falls prevention worksheet for me, and that will be worth 2%. And hopefully you will find that that's not overly time consuming, because I know that we're getting close to the exam. And so I want to make sure that we're using your time wisely. And then another thing that you might be educating in terms of promoting health and disease prevention is cognitive games to help stimulate brain development and maintain memory skills and attention skills. So those are some of the things that we're going to be looking at. In week 13, we're also going to be looking at retirement. So, the end of work, and what do you do after you're not working anymore? We're going to look at social relationships and how important those are in maintaining a healthy lifestyle and cognitive development for some of our elderly population. We're also going to look at elder abuse. And so I have a bunch of links there for elder abuse that I've posted on the week 13 folder on Blackboard. So I'd like you to click on those links, because I certainly want you to be familiar with elder abuse and the legislation and reporting for elder abuse, as well as long-term care legislation. We're also going to look at the difference between institutionalization and living at home, living in long-term care residence, and different community resources that are available to our aging population. Even things like living in a rural setting versus living in an urban setting, as our clientele ages, what they have access to, transportation, and even just group activities alone. There's a significant difference depending on where someone lives. So hopefully I've given you a good little overview in terms of what to expect over the next 3 weeks, and also helped to just give a bit more insight into how the exam is going to go. I'm still developing the questions, but there's certainly going to be some matching activities. There will be some multiple choice, but there's also going to be some short answer questions as well. And so I will give you more information as we get closer to that date, but I did just want to give you a heads up that really focusing on the discussion board questions is going to get you well on your way to preparing for the exam. So I'm here. If anybody has questions, please reach out. Many of you have emailed me, and hopefully you found that I have responded in a decent amount of time. And I'm certainly here if any of you have any questions or concerns or want to run things past me. Keep up the great work with the discussion board. I'm really, really pleased with what I'm seeing. And those of you that have run your group events, you've done a fantastic job. I'm excited to see the last couple of events and see what you guys have come up with. You've really impressed me, and you've impressed our families out in the community, and you've impressed our partners with Children's Treatment Network. So keep up the great work, and I look forward to touching base with any one of you that wants to reach out. Okay, thanks guys. Take care.